But it's been a big week for the Roosters. Terrell May talked about his future at the Roosters, and we got some audio from that as well too, Tourist.
Just a strange one, because like nothing was like even said or even like mentioned at all like during the whole year, and then getting a phone call 2 days before our second game in England. So yeah, getting that phone call from Robbo, I was just like, I was thinking of all the good things, I was like, I must be getting a call saying like, so happy for you and all this stuff, or like, yeah, you did us proud, the club and that. And then to get that call, and it was a whole 180 of what I thought the original call was, I was just like, I was in shock, bro. I didn't digest it at all till like a week later. I was just like, bro, what just happened? Like, did I just lose my contract? Yeah, the reason I got it just didn't add up to me. And I see people like saying he must have done this, he must have done that. But the honest truth is, I honestly don't know why I got released.
So it was Terrell May there speaking on Jimmy Graham's podcast, the Buy Round podcast. He was pretty...
He's an open book, mate.
Pretty open and honest.
Terrell May, the May brothers, like, over the years, had done some content with him, and it's like they're as honest as you're going to get when it comes to an interview about how they feel. He went in depth about talking about the West Tigers too, joining there, changing their mentality. But it sounds like it's caught him off guard.
Completely off
guard. So that would have rattled, especially if you're in a different country as well. People forget that, He gets himself a good contract at the West Tigers, but he just settled in. We actually had a chat to him just before he re-signed at the Roosters, halfway through on a Moles episode.
That's right, yeah,
this year. So
it was not just the fact that it definitely caught him off guard, but he was expecting a positive phone call, so it's even worse than that. It's almost compounded it, to be 50% worse than just getting the news that he got. He was expecting a bit of a rap from Robbo because he had a cracking year. As he said, like new deal signed.
He reminds me of a little bit, and I feel like he could go on to have like this sort of career is a bit like David Fafita. He's a little bit, you forgot the Western Sydney background, and Andrew Fafita. Yep. He was at the Tigers. It sort of was okay, showed some glimpses there. Then he goes on to Cronulla Sharks and just becomes the alpha, becomes the leader of the pack there. I know Gal was a part of that team, but that year that they won the comp, that Andrew was just on fire. And for a long time, for a good 2 or 3 years, he was just dominating.
Clive Church medalist.
He deserved it.
That'd be fair, wouldn't it?
He deserved it. Yeah, he was really good. Like, he was the reason they won that grand final, in my opinion. But yeah, I feel like now moving on, Terrell May could go to the Tigers, and he talked about, he wants to win. He goes into every competition. I love the mindset, especially with what the West Tigers are coming off, and Jarome Luai, inserting Jarome Luai, the championship DNA from Jarome Luai, and the way that he thinks and their relationship growing up in Western Sydney.
Yeah,
I think it could be a good little combination for the Tigers. Something to be, they've got. I'm of the opinion, if you're going to be recruiting positions, you want the spine or front rowers in this day and age, and they've ticked 2 of those boxes.
Well, I'm glad you said that man's name, Jarome Luai. It's been a big. Well, he's been a walking headline for the majority of his career, but it hasn't really gone away since signing for the West Tigers. So there's a shock clause that's been revealed. This is thanks to, Michael Chamis has revealed this in the Sydney Morning Herald. The shock clause in Jarome Luai's $6 million West Tigers deal. Do you want to sort of unpack this little clause for a scope?
All right, so this one comes from Chamis. So the $6 million deal that Jarome Luai signed has a clause in it. So the contract signing Jarome Luai includes an option in his favour that could allow the playmaker to leave the joint venture after only 2 seasons. So Luai will become a free agent following his first season as the West Tigers after the club agreed to player options in the final 3 years of his 5-year contract. Now, I believe... Obviously, where it's not far removed from the Titans situation with Tino and Dave Fafita. They just went through this, and I believe Parramatta have something similar with Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses.
Yep.
This happens. This happens a lot. Like, I guess when Tigers fans found out about this clause, they wouldn't be happy because, it's basically a wait and see. But when you're in the position that the Tigers are in and the player has all the power.
Where has this leak come from then? Because it's a strange leak to try and work out which party has sort of fed this to, assuming that's how it's happened. It seems like that's how they usually do.
I'm not sure
like the club would want that to get out.
No, definitely not. I can't imagine Jerome's management or Jarome, wanting people just the noise that would be associated. I don't think it's a huge deal as much as people are making out.
As in, it's commonplace in.
It's commonplace for the
NRL.
teams that are struggling and a player that's in a power of position, like Jarome. Like Jarome was, he had probably 3 or 4 teams. Not only 3 or 4 teams gunning for him, but he also still did have a reduced offer at Penrith Panthers to stay there in a championship-winning team as well. So he had options, and when you got options, sometimes you got to entice him with a little bit more money. Sometimes, on occasion, and the other way you can get him was a little bit more freedom at the back end of the contract. So it's up to Benji. If Benji and Richardson did this together, pitch in to try get Jarome on board, they're like, look, we want you for 5. All right, let's lock in to 100%, and then we'll show you what we're trying to build here at the West Tigers. Like, you just need to give us a couple of years, and we'll get it done. Now, there have been occasions where it hasn't paid out. Holbrook, Titans, they sort of had that short version contracts for Tino and Dave, and it sort of didn't work out in time, and then they exercised their clause, and he ended up finishing up. So it's up to Benji. It's a big 12 months for Benji and Shane Richardson at the Tigers.
It's big, isn't it? Well, after the comments made by Richo last week, I think it was last week, about the best spine in the comp. Now, I don't know how, not tongue in cheek, it's not the right word, but he's probably said a throwaway line in a press conference, and I've certainly latched onto it, and I think most of the world has. It's a big statement. But you kind of want that from the top, right? He's trying to show not just the players but the whole club that they're fully invested.
Sorry, what was the comment that I missed?
He said they've got the best spine in the competition, and maybe even the best backup. I think he really
he likes
went for it, and then he went down the pitch again.
Okay.
Again after it.
I like it. Yeah, look, they've actually improved out of sight. Like, if you look at Api Carousel, where would you rank Api Carousel in terms of nines in the game? Top 3?
He's podium.
Jarome Luai, 1 or 2, depending on who you ask. 6?
Podium.
6?
Yeah.
Lachlan Galvin, we're all pretty excited about what Lachlan Galvin can provide. I'm a big Jerome Buller fan. I actually did my rankings in terms, at the end of the season, and looked at projection, age, all these injury history, and I just had Jerome Buller floating around in that 8, 9, 10 region. I think he can be a real player for him, and I know they're heavily invested in him. So it's definitely nowhere near where they've been in years past, right? So that's a big plus. Whether number one's pushing it.
Just think Craig Bellamy and the Storm boys might have had a little smirk on their faces when they heard the comments. But I like it. It's
and Dylan Edwards, Nathan Cleary, and I know we don't know who the 6 is, but Mitch Kenny might have a word about I know they've lost Jarome, and Jerome's gone to the West Tigers, but I dare say they still like their chances as a spine, no matter who, whether it's young Blaze Talangi, whether it's young Jack Cole, or whoever ends up filling in that 6 spot.